Hey everybody, it's Ryan. I'm back out here with Andrew, and as you can probably tell, the corn has really taken off in the last 2 weeks. Anyway, Andrew brought out his pogo stick, so we're gonna go out and do some pogoing. Andrew, I see the handles on it, but where do you put your feet to jump up and down on it?
Right. No, there's a kickstand on that side, but that's to mark the plants.
Okay.
So yeah, we're gonna run this. I wanted to do this before it pollinates, because there'll be a cloud of pollen in here within about a week. So we can run this pogo stick anywhere from about V2 to, throughout the season.
Okay.
There's no time that's too late to do it. The purpose of this tool is to evaluate how our planter did in the field, to look at our population, to look at the singulation, doubles and skips. I'm really wanting to look at the closing wheel study that we did. We had half the planter with the Schlegels and half the planter with the furrow cruisers. So we'll look at the difference of that when we're out there. We've already made the decision on what you're using going forward based off of what we saw at planting, but let's see what the numbers relate to as far as the closing wheels. And as you can see, we've pulled up your Agfinity again, and I've got your spacing pulled up. So one thing with the finger meters on that planter, it's a ground drive planter with finger meters. You can see there's a big difference from one pass to the next, direction wise on the spacing. So I can click anywhere on this map. If we click in here, so we're basically in row 5, and there's our stats here. So 96% spacing there, a population of 31.43, right about average. As we go over to the next set of 12 rows, our spacing goes to 100%. With 30,000 population. So we're going to go into the field. This shows us our location. We'll go to where we're right over one of these areas. We'll run the pogo tool and see what the pogo tells us.
Okay. So what is the true name of this tool? Like, is there like a...
It's the pogo stick.
They just call it a pogo stick.
It's the pogo stick. Yep.
Okay, fair.
So, and then the app on here is the Pogo app. So Precision Planting Pogo, you see there.
Okay.
We'll fill out the information. I've already gone through and filled out the field and environment information here on that screen. We've got the planter information set up there. There's a spot for notes, and then our run log. We're going to start a run, and we're going to mark the plants as we go.
Okay, cool.
So right ahead in there.
Yep, let's go. When is the best stage to be doing this?
It's easier when it's shorter.
But you can do this all the way up?
You can. The results are going to be the same.
Okay.
It's V5, V6 is probably the easiest time, but it's also our busiest time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're pretty close to where I had marked. We're right in the middle of this pass. And the GPS will jump around. This is just as good as the GPS is on the iPad. But I'd say we're pretty close to row, about 8 there. If we wanted to, sometimes we can see the tire track still, but this late in the game, it's a little bit more challenging to see that. So we're gonna call this row 8. And we're gonna start our run. So I'll leave the Agfinity app, go to the Pogo app, and we're gonna do a new run. So, and I'm gonna change to, so V8, V7, and V6, no germ. So you see I changed my buttons there. These plants right now, we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're basically at V12, looks like, for collars now, but we're going to call anything V12 is basically going to be V8. If it's a leaf stage behind, we're going to mark it as leaf stage behind, or if there's a skip where we think there's a plant or a seed, we can hit the no germ, because there is going to be every once in a while where a seed doesn't germinate. Most of our seed is going to be about a 95% guaranteed germ. but there's always one seed in a few that's not going to germ. So we're going to recalibrate first just to make sure our calibration's right for our spacing. It says we're about 4 inches right now, which pretty close there. We're going to hit recalibrate, hit OK. They say to calibrate this once a day just to keep your spacing right. So pull tape to the 0 mark.
Kind of pull it out of the ground.
Yep. So we'll put it in like that. So we'll hit set, and now we pull the tape to the 10-foot mark. Okay. We're gonna hit set. We do this all the way to 100.
Oh, really?
Now we'll walk back. So we've got one plant. So anytime we got a good plant, we could just hit red button there, and it's gonna mark our plant. So now we can see this plant is farther behind this plant here. So if we look at the collars, and we can forget those bottom 2 leaves because they're not here anymore. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got 10 and 11 collars there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It may be just 1 day behind. You know, usually you get a new leaf collar every 3 days. So I'm gonna mark it as just basically 1 stage behind. You hear it makes a different sound when we do that.
Yep.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Look at those silks.
So this was a little bit of wind damage here. Other than that, looked like a decent plant. So here we got an oddball plant that's growing up. So lots of things can cause this late emerger. Sometimes wheel traffic going through the row can cause something like this. Not necessarily a planter issue. It can be sometimes, and that's why doing this a little bit earlier in the season can be beneficial. You can see a little bit more like this, but I'm just going to call it a late plant at this point. It is not spaced right, we can see that. But then look at the stalk size on the plant next to it. So when your plant has a lot more space, it's going to have a lot girthier stalk than the standard plant. I would say this plant's more of a standard plant here. This one's had a lot more room, and you can see the second year starting to form on this one. So it's going to compensate and flex a little bit for the extra space, extra sunlight it's getting. There we got a double.
So how do you mark those?
Just 2 plants.
Okay.
So, and it'll tell us in the doubles and skips in here.
Really?
Yep. Doing all the math in the background for us. Otherwise, as far as plant height goes, this row looks very uniform. I'm going to guess that when we go about 4 rows over that way, we're going to see a difference just because of the closing wheels. But both sets of closing wheels you ran this year were an upgrade from just the factory rubber ones.
Oh yeah. Even flying the drone over this year, I'm noticing that at least in our fields, there's a lot less
holes,
skips. Yeah, a lot less holes, I guess, in the cornfields. Especially when we were over at Gibson's, it was just the layout over there. It looked like the planter did a really good job, as good as it could.
Yep. Yeah, the ground conditions were a little bit more challenging this year than normal, but I agree with you that I told Travis probably 2 weeks after emergence, it is one of the best stands that you guys have had since I started working with you. We're coming up on a skip. So as you can see, and this could have been one of those no germ scenarios, or it could truly be a skip. But we're not gonna mark anything. We're gonna mark that one. Then we're gonna come over here and mark that one. So you can pick how long of a run you want to run with this. The longer you go, the more accurate you get. We're getting into a spot where we have some wind damage, so I'm gonna call it good right there, about 30 feet. And
oh, so you don't have to go the full 100?
You don't have to go the full 100, no.
Okay.
So we're gonna complete run. And then it does want the row number here. So row 8, complete run. Now it's saving the run. So now, based off of where we were just at, it shows us every plant we marked, if the spacing was off, and then a summary. So we've got a good spacing summary of 85.33%. It gives us a placement score and then the limits here. So the actual population was 30,806. And then the financial impact of that spacing number, as you can see there, is about $78 an acre versus having 100% spacing. Your ear potential, you've got about 89% of the ear potential out in that row where we measured it, compared to what you could have if every plant was spaced perfectly. That's never going to happen. I mean, in real world scenarios, there's, I mean, 99.99, I've seen 100% on the monitor in the cab occasionally, but to get that to hold across the field the entire time
is difficult between planting depth, emergence, growth throughout the season. Yeah,
I mean, you look at the soil, you're always going to have issues with the soil. It's not going to be perfectly smooth no matter what you do for a tillage program. But you can get 99.9% pretty regularly, 99.7 to 99.9. But the more you have mechanical devices on the planter, the chains, the drive shafts, finger meters, all that adds up to a little bit lower than 100% spacing. So we've measured row 8. I'm going to reel in the tape measure, and we're going to go back a few rows, and we're going to go to row 4, and we're going to see what we have for a score over there. So this saves it all. I can email it over to you. And what will be really interesting is comparing these notes to the yield monitor this fall.
Okay, let's go. A little mushroom.
Okay, so we came back 4 rows, so we should be at row 4 now. I'm gonna start a new run. Let's take the tape measure. And here we are at the first plant.
Here's above my head.
About the same length now. So it's calculating each of the plants right there. And hit complete run. Saving run. Look at the difference here. So now on this row 4, we're at 96.17%.
Wow.
And look at the difference on the financial impact there. So, and remember, we're in on the Agfinity. We should be about right here.
Oh, really?
Based on, as the app is calculating data, it's gonna zoom us in there. But row 4, your spacing was, look at that number there, about 100%. According to the planner monitor. So it's really lining up with what we're seeing with the POGO stick. So row 4 over there. Pretty close. Part of these spots, 98%. So it was noticing a little bit of a decrease from where we were over there to over there. So but stand makes a big difference, as you can see just in those spots. $50 difference based on how these plants were lined up in a row.
Yep, and over X amount of acres, it really adds up.
It does, yep. So now, let's get out of this pass, go to the next pass down where we saw in the Xfinity where it was yellow, and let's see what the pogo stick tells us over there.
Okay.
By kind of looking at the rows, we should be right about row 8, so about 5 feet off there. Still bouncing around trying to find us. It's getting a little closer. This is collecting information, but row 8. So where we're at here, the spacing percentage would be 96.69%, and this guy might not even set in here. So there's so much competition from the plants next to it. You know, both of these two guys are going to be shadowed. They're competing with these larger plant root systems for water and nutrients. They're probably not going to amount to much.
So you're marking those 2 stages behind?
I am, yep. So we were here wide dropping a few days ago, and that is the plant moisture that it's funneling down the leaves to get the nitrogen into the plant. So that's why with the wide drops, putting that nitrogen so close to the plant is really effective getting the nutrients into the plant, because and as long as there's a dew, you're going to have moisture funneled down there, and that's proof of the moisture that plant is funneled down to the stock.
Okay.
Here we've got kind of a sucker plant. This is still somewhat of a mystery. I need to do some more research on why we have plants like this, but you tend to see them this time of year. They don't really stand out before tassel time as we walk through the fields, but right about this time, you see these plants and wonder what happened there. Some guys have said they thought it's refuge corn because of the refuge trade agreements using the GMO corn. 5% of the corn is going to be a refuge plant. It's possible that this was being fed on by rootworm beetles and just never had a chance to compete with the rest of the plants, but it was basically held in growth stage. You know, when the corn was about that tall, it blended in, but now that the rest of the plants have taken over, this thing stands out like a sore thumb.
Just sucking nutrients out.
Correct.
We'll just pull that one out. Fertilizer.
So we're at 31 feet, so we're going to call that a good run. Hit complete run. So pretty decent here. We've got a 98% spacing here. Remember, we did have those shorter plants in here, so that's going to give us more of a financial impact and also affect our ear potential. So for this run, back to $54.28 financial impact. Couple neat things about the app. This is what the 2020 monitor looks like. So if guys like looking at that kind of a screen, you can see it there. And then the email report, I can email this right over to you.
Cool.
So let's do one more, go back 4 more rows, and see what we get over there, and we'll call it a day.
Okay.
There is 2 plants. So see the difference between this and the last group of plants we looked at? We do have brace roots on both of those.
Yep.
So they're not in line, so I still question if that's actual 2 seeds or if that's a tiller, but we're going to count this one as 2.
Okay.
This is one of the best stands that you've had out here. So
do you think that could be helped because of closing wheels? Because that was one big change.
Yeah, I think closing wheels definitely made a difference. What was this chiseled as well?
I think so, but I'd have to look back.
It looks like it was based on the residue.
Yeah.
But tillage makes a huge impact on not only warming the ground up, but giving a consistent seed bed to plant into. So I think the VT tool did a pretty good job where that was run this year and giving you a good stand. But lots of factors. You know, every year our goal is to do something to improve. You know, whether it's closing wheels, sometimes it's something as simple as planting speed. Going back and looking at your data, you know, how fast did we plant and how did that affect yield? Sometimes it's nutrient placement. You know, if we can get nutrients closer to the root zone. In fact, I brought the shovel out here. Let's dig one of these up and see how big the roots actually are on one of these plants.
Okay.
96.47%, 49.88.
Okay, so just about 50.
Yep.
Dollars an acre.
Again, there's always some financial impact. I've never found a completely perfect stand. It goes back to, you know, you're not ever going to have 100% germination, and unless you're in a lab or a greenhouse. So there's always going to be factors outside of the planter impacting it a little bit, but the trick is, you know, there's $50 of opportunity here. Can we capture 25 of that back? And you know, even at $25 an acre, that adds up really fast. And we don't want to just spend money randomly, like, okay, well, let's try that, or let's try this. You know, it comes back to trials, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Talk to other farmers that have experience, seeing what works for them. If they have a similar type of tillage situation as you, similar crop rotation, we learn from each other, figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then make the most informed decisions we can.
Yep.
So you got the shovel there. I'm just going to set this up against those plants. And so this is a pretty beefy plant there, pretty healthy. So I get a lot of guys ask me, you know, if we run a coulter bar, we're putting our nitrogen in a slot right down the middle of the row like that. Isn't that going to be good enough? Isn't that going to be effective enough? So I'm going to start digging right about here, and I'm going to dig around that plant, and we're going to see where the roots are. All right, so you can see I pulled my shovel up. I don't see hardly any root hairs here. A couple still coming out to here, but that's about the extent of it. So we are not quite halfway. I'd say about halfway is right here. So good root mass there. As I'm digging roots, I'm also kind of keeping an eye on what kind of bugs we got going on. Look for signs of rootworm feeding. I'm hoping to see lots of really fine root hairs, as you can see there. So we've got awesome root activity. This hybrid is an exceptional hybrid for standability. We've had some pretty strong winds through here. There's a lot of corn that's down in the area. This is decal 5438. It's a very reliable hybrid. It's been around the area for a long time. And it's a very popular hybrid just because it is so reliable. If you take a look at that, that's basically the root zone. So back to the Y drops. If we can get our nitrogen right in this zone, that's going to be right there for the plant. If we're coming through right about there, that nitrogen still got a ways to travel to get over the plant. I'm a big fan of putting equipment on the planter. Now I know a lot of guys kind of shudder at the fact of fertilizer on a planter because it's usually high salt, very corrosive, but there are ways you could put fertilizer on a planter, keep it pretty contained, and get that fertilizer distributed either through like Conceal with Precision Planting, through the gauge wheels. 360 Yield Center has Bandit, and that's going to put the nitrogen kind of past the row unit where you don't have to worry about a lot of nutrients splattering up. Some guys will mix some phosphorus with that as well, so you get your nitrogen and phosphorus into the plant. And we're seeing really good results for banding those nutrients right in the root zone, especially as we're pushing these high yields that the genetics are capable of anymore. That plant needs as much concentrated right there for fast uptake into the plant without having to work overly hard for it. So that's what we got. Last thing we're going to do out here today, we've pulled a tissue sample when that corn is V6. We're pretty much at the reproductive stage VT right now. These ears are determining how many kernels long they are. So let's check on the nutrient aspect of the plants at this stage of the game and see how we're sitting. Okay. You want to pull the leaf that's opposite the ear and directly below. So the ear is going to come out here. So that's going to be this leaf right here. And about 20 leaves is sufficient. All right, so here's the app right on my cell phone. So I'm just going to go to new sample, put my name in there, tissue, bag ID, just like that.
You'll get the results on your phone when it's done, or on Agfinity, or...
Both, yeah.
Okay.
We'll get them in the NutriTracker app, and then I usually email them to you as well.
Yep.
So, take picture.
Oh, that's a great one.
Summary and submit.
Great.
So,
I hope that comes up when they sample it.
It does. So, all right, cool. Well, we'll have these in about a week for you.
All right, sounds good. See you then. And that's it for this video. I have not yet received the tissue sample results back from Andrew. But once I get them back, I might post them on Snapchat or something. So with that, thanks for watching this video, guys. Be sure to check out all of our other videos. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, all how farms work. And if my video schedule gets a little off, I'm doing some home renovations inside right now, and things are going to kind of get shook up over the next week or so. Pretty much, I'm putting a new floor in the house, so I got to move everything around, and it's been sorely needed for the last 5 years. The house has been a construction site, so I just kind of want to get the inside all nice and cleaned up and whatnot. So I'm working on tearing out the old linoleum right now, and it's now 10 o'clock at night, and let's just say I have a long way to go. So anyway, see you next time, guys.